listening to Her Profit Era, the podcast for founders who want a business that actually works. A business that's profitable, predictable, and pays them well. I'm Cindy Kumar, a CPA, a fractional CFO from Abbotsford, BC, Canada. I'm the person founders call when they're tired of high revenue months with no money left over. I started this podcast because too many founders were chasing sales while their margins, cash flow, and bank accounts told a completely different story. I believe profit and money in the bank is the standard, not a bonus, and that every founder deserves clarity around their numbers. Each week, you'll get real financial strategy you can actually use and honest conversations with founders and industry experts about what it really takes to build a business that lasts. Lydia is a dating coach for high achievers and hopeless romantics who are done playing it cool and ready to call in love that feels healthy and delicious. She is also a Reiki master, ecstatic dance instructor, intuitive guide, and host of the top podcast called Flirting with Life. Her expertise has been featured on CTV Vancouver, Breakfast Television, Virgin Radio Canada, and several podcasts including Bedside, The Balance and Bliss, and the Soul Connection podcast. Today, we're talking about love, relationships, self-worth, and what it really takes to stop chasing the wrong connections and create a partnership that actually feels good. So let's get into this conversation. Hi, Lydia. Thanks so much for joining me on Our Profit Era.
Thanks, Cindy. I'm so juiced up for this easy breezy but deep conversation we're about to have.
Yeah, I'm excited. I feel like we had connected at one of the Business Babes events and you had just gone through your breakup, you're starting your coaching, and I feel like you've gone through so much and we haven't had a chance to really catch up since.
I know. It was so fun to meet you at that first Bloom Business event. At the time, it was Business Babes, and I was a volunteer at the time. And yeah, I remember you were one of the first people I met at that event, and it was just so precious. And we sat at the same table, and I feel like you and I have both come a long way. Like that was
Yeah.
almost 3 years ago, and to see how we've skyrocketed in our personal endeavors, in our businesses, in our brands, even, I think we're completely different people
Yeah.
in so many ways. I feel like you could agree. Like, I feel like I love that version of me, but I don't recognize her because, to your point, I was recently off a breakup and really in the first 6 months of my business at the time, which was a completely different niche.
Yeah.
And I hadn't really built many like business peers or relationships up until that point in Vancouver. So that was really the catapult for me to build a much richer network. And so it's really cool to look back on that and see that that was one of the first seeds planted to be where I'm at today.
That's amazing. What was your self-love kind of journey like?
Oh my goodness. I think like my self-love journey has been like a roller coaster in many ways, but it's also been like a plane that I think maybe I would have said roller coaster before, but now I feel in my soul it's more like a plane that's like slowly taking off and going into the sky, and it hits some turbulence, but then it's starting to coast and you just have the
Yeah.
most magnificent view above the clouds and of the Rocky Mountains if you're in Canada. And I think that's the best analogy for my self-love journey. I remember, as early as high school and my university days, I was pretty insecure about myself. Like, I
Yeah.
remember being really hard on myself. I was really ambitious. I still am, but I was ambitious so much that I just tied a lot of my worth to other people's approval of what I was doing. I wanted to be a lawyer, and
Yeah.
that ended up not happening for many different reasons, but I was really hell bent on, okay, how can I do things to please other people? And so that trickled into my friendships and even into romantic settings. I didn't have my first relationship until I was 22. And so my approach up until that point was very victim mindset. Oh, woe is me. Why am I not getting this attention? Why haven't I cracked this code? And so pretty much up until 22, I don't really think I had much self-love. And I did the bubble baths, and like I remember getting Lush bath bombs to take a break from studying at school, but
Yeah.
that's not really self-love. And I think once I left university, I was really faced with one of the most pivotal moments in my life where it felt like as if I was dropped from the plane and into this abyss of darkness, not sure where to go. And it seemed, at least from the outside, that everybody had their life together except for me. And everybody knew what their next steps were, and people were in relationships, and people were starting their life. And here I was. Yes, I was in a relationship and I was working my first full-time job, but I was like left wondering, oh, like I did all this for this moment and it doesn't feel like how I thought it would. And I was still operating from that level of approval from others. And in that first job, it was a job in politics, actually, in Ontario politics. I was working for a politician in his constituency office. And to this day, it's one of the most stressful jobs I've ever had because it was very public facing. We weren't like doing a policy office, we were a constituency community office. So we were open to the public. And that just meant me at 22, recently fresh raw grad, getting used to a lot of scrutiny, even though I wasn't the politician. And so that
Yeah.
messed with my head, but I put so much pressure on myself to the moment that I, 6 months into that job, was in the office and I broke out in hives because I was so
Oh,
stressed.
wow.
And I know that's because of stress because I don't
Yeah.
have any allergies to anything. Yeah, my body was reacting, and I knew internally that I had been so stressed leading up to that moment. And my office manager just told me to go home, and I knew from then I needed to just change how I approached, yeah, my self-love journey, what it looked like to actually rest and relax and rejuvenate. And so yeah, that takes me, I mean, there's been so much life in between, but how I see self-love now is it's not all, it's aesthetic and it's non-aesthetic. And I think like it's more of the non-aesthetic than we want to give it credit for. It's like when we're in the trenches of a really hard time, it's talking to the stressed out part of ourselves, um or the anxious part of ourselves, and just like giving it some compassion and saying like, okay, I know that you feel this way, and I know a part of you feels this way. It's like talking to yourself,
Yeah.
but just stay with it, and then it's going to be okay. I think self-love is actually facing our emotions and feeling to heal, and then from there, it's like tapping into whatever our gut and our intuition is kind of telling us we need to lean on, whether that's just some time alone, whether that's time with community. It's listening to that after.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Yeah, I feel like as women, we put so much pressure on ourselves, like the external pressure, our relationships, we pour into everybody else, but we just put ourselves last.
Yeah, it's very common, and I still feel like I do that to some degree even now, but I think I'm getting better. If that's something you're always doing, you have to be honest with yourself. And something that I'm noticing in other people that I used to say is like, well, I give so much and I never expect anything in return. And it's
Yeah,
like, well, that's not really giving if you're coming
so
from
true.
that energy of like always expecting things in return. So then that's a moment to think, oh, it's not about the people around me not offering to help. It's like me operating from overdrive, trying to overgive and not looking at where do I need to pour into myself, or actually, yeah, ask for support more, but not always from a place of needing that reciprocation from the person at hand that you're giving to, if that makes sense. Because I want my giving to feel also like an act of self-love in a way. I want it to nourish me and fill me up. So if I'm ever creeping into that realm of, oh, I give so much and like never get anything, it's like, come on. Lydia, like be honest with yourself. Like, and then like take stock of what has been given to you. Because again, we get into that, oh, woe is me. But
Yeah.
maybe if you just take a moment to journal for 10 minutes on how much people have given to you during hard moments or life moments, you might start to realize, oh, it hasn't always been one-sided. So it's just easy for our ego to play these mind games on us.
It's so true. Yeah. when people offer help, it's like you don't even want to take it. Like there's so much resistance around it.
Yeah, well, what's your resistance if people offer to give you help on something?
I feel like I'm like a control freak. Like I like things done a certain way or have expectations. And then I just feel like if I ask for help or like someone comes in, it's not going to be done like the right way. I know it's like a me issue.
Yeah. Yeah, I think in those cases then it's like deciding what
Yeah.
like good enough is what I've heard in those
Yeah.
cases. Like what is that good enough version for you if it's not up to those standards? And then making your peace and maybe starting off with the things that you don't feel as attached to.
So true. That's a good point. Yeah. Or even communicating.
Yeah, yeah, communicating what kind of how you want the project or the thing at hand to be done with. Sometimes I do feel resistance too because I've held this badge of, oh, I can do things on my own.
Yeah.
But that's not really going to get me far in the impact that I want to have. I literally need support and community and friends. So,
Yeah.
like a really good example of me leaning into like support was a friend of mine, a mutual person we know, Danielle Lemon. Shout out to her. This was last year, she asked me, is there any way like I can just support you in, continuing to make a splash with your podcast? And again, I could have just been like, no, I'm okay. Like,
Yeah.
and that can be true sometimes, but she asked so genuinely. And so I sat with it for a moment instead of brushing it off. And I said, let me think about this. Actually, I realized from my podcast launch party that when I do in-person events, it really activates people in a different way. And so it would be incredible if I could do another live event. And I have this dream of doing live podcast interviews. And she has a community that meets on a monthly basis. And she said, well, why don't we do one at the February community meetup? And I said,
Wow.
great. And so that was thanks to her putting that out and then thanks to me, who I didn't quickly say, "Oh no, I'm good." I said, "Let myself think." And I think
Yeah.
that's a way that you can also give yourself self-love in a real moment in life if somebody's offering you something, is like don't react so hastily. Just say, "Let me just think on this." Whether it's in the moment or you need to think about it overnight, that's okay. We don't need to know the answer right away.
That's so true. Yeah. Or even like jam packing your schedule. A lot of us, we just say yes on autopilot instead of taking the space to be like, okay, like let me get back to you or let me see how it actually fits in my schedule.
Yeah, completely. I get a lot of invitations now, which is like very exciting. A lot of people I know in my network are doing so many cool events and gatherings, and I do try to make an intentional effort to go to like 1 to 2 events a month, just because I think it's so important for maintaining your rich network and nurturing relationships and staying top of mind and just showing up in person.
Yeah.
It's also beneficial for yeah, me building a relationship-led business. And the work I do too, a lot of my clients have come through in person that I've met. So I build that trust with people just faster.
Yeah.
So, but even beyond that, I just love connecting with people and having deep conversations. But even though I'm extroverted, it could get to the point where I still overdo it. And then I don't have any time on my schedule for all these other things that I have to do. And then it's
Yeah.
like this week is an anomaly. I have like a lot of events in the next week. Like two of them are my own. One of them is like my book club that I just go to for fun. And then I have a dinner, and so that's like 4 events in 1 week. And so that's, but that's just this week and I'll just make it happen and do what I need to do. And luckily I know my energy that I could sustain 4 events this
Yeah.
week, but not 4 events every week. So,
Every week. Yeah. No, that totally makes sense. How can
yeah.
someone start like their self-love journey or like, because you always hear like self-love, the self-care rituals, and doing all these things. And I know a lot of women like they try the affirmations, they do the bubble baths, but it's not really doing anything. It's more of like checking it off.
Yeah, that's you really raised a good question, Cindy. I'm glad you asked this because for a lot of people, affirmations don't work when it comes to self-love. Be open to trying things and sticking with them for a little bit before being outright like, oh, this doesn't work for me. Like if you've just done affirmations for a day and you
Yeah.
don't think it works for you, I'm sorry to say, but that's just like, I think if we just try anything for a day, the equivalent is like working out for a day and you expect to see all these muscles, like it's just not going to happen, right? And
Right.
so I'd like to like say stick with something. It's such a ambitious thing to do it for a month if you can. That probably is ideal, but I would just try to stick with something for 2 weeks. And then if after that it's like really you don't feel it integrating with you, then you can absolutely move on and maybe you return to it later. And so like keep a journal of the things that you try. But in terms of where to start, I um I think it's first like coming back to your inner child, honestly, because that's the part that is so easily like feeling into triggers in real time or is feeling the wounded, pattern surface when we're now adults in like our adult body. And it's that inner child that is often the one that, is also hardest on ourselves in many ways. So I think the best place to start is like writing a letter from your inner child and like open up a journal. This is something I've done a few times in my life
Yeah.
and use your non-dominant hand. So you like activate a different part of your brain. And so for me, that's my left hand. And just imagine like your little girl at 7 years old and just like sit with that for a moment before you start writing and just imagine what she would say. And it's probably very innocent, very loving, very pure, and right from that non-dominant hand.
Yeah.
And it's going to feel awkward and messy because it's not your usual hand, but that's actually the point because then it actually feels like your child writing.
Yeah.
And just sit with that letter, and there's going to be so much wisdom there. And then once you connect to that inner child, it's like you can't you can't turn around and just like disregard them. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
now they're here. And so I need to take care of you, right? And so
Right.
then you'll figure it out along the way, and the inner child in you will be more open to playing and experimenting.
That's such great advice. Yeah, because even for myself, I'm finding like I'm starting to do the things I used to enjoy as a child. Like I have a coloring book, like a word search. I just went to the dollar store, got some like paints and like a canvas. So I feel like those kind of things are like coming back to me now.
That's really beautiful. Yeah, I think we like, especially as ambitious, like high achieving women, we're so in the world of execution and getting things done and strategy, and and that's amazing and badass. But yeah, I think a big part of self-love is connecting to what the little girl inside wanted to do.
Yeah, for sure. And then what has like your dating journey been like? I feel like you have such an interesting story.
Yeah, I think my dating journey, I feel like a mix of all the characters of Sex and the City. So I feel like I've been the Carrie, the Miranda, the Charlotte, and the Samantha all in one. And that's why I have love. They're all beautifully and perfectly perfect women, and I see myself in all of them. I had this journey first of, I mentioned this earlier, being like single until I was 22.
Yeah.
And that it's 22 to me now feels still very young, but the the same feeling comes up in many women I know who are sometimes single until their late 20s, even their mid to late 30s until they find their person or they try to start dating.
Yeah.
And I just remember feeling that way of everybody else though in my life at that point that I met in high school or university had been in a relationship. So I was very confused about what is going on with me, why is this happening? And I really, really wanted attention from men at the time. And what's funny is I got hit on sometimes, but and it's what I thought I wanted, but I wasn't also ready to really like receive it. And I think I had a lot of my own beliefs around getting attention in like a sensual way, in a flirty way, and I wasn't so confident in my skin or my heart. And so I remember like at a party, I think this guy was trying to flirt with me and I was like actually like kind of running away. Like I was like kind of scared and it felt good in the moment, but then my
Yeah.
head was starting to comprehend, oh, this means he likes me, and that means we might go to a date, and oh my God, I don't have any experience on a date. What am I going to say? I'm going to look stupid. So you can see I'm like, but this
Spiraling.
is this is also what I see in a lot of women being challenged by this is then you start to spiral and you're
Yeah,
already at chapter 10 before even chapter 1 has started.
so true.
And so, I think what changed is like I got to fourth year and I was in my last year, my last semester, and I remember thinking like I really, don't want to end university without at least having like tried to go on a date. And I remember just like that was my main barrier to entry. I was like no
Yeah,
longer thinking about getting a boyfriend or meeting somebody, meeting the love of my life. I was just like, I just thought I'd like go on a date. And
yeah,
so I went on Tinder and I matched with a guy really quickly, and he became my first boyfriend. And so that was my first long-term relationship for 2 years. I learned a lot from that,
yeah,
but I think the real lessons came after him, to be honest with you, because that was beautiful and abundant and so amazing. And I hadn't really had experience actually dating before him because that was my first date. So as soon as I entered the dating world after him, that's when I faced rejections, ghosting, like all the things that people, really complain about. I got turned down. I just faced a lot of all of this. And then I had my hoe phase for a year while I was traveling and experienced one night stands for the first time and had to cope with like the feelings of getting feels for people so fast and then, not maybe having that energy reciprocated. Um, but I think what that journey taught me is the importance of being a little bit messy. And my high achieving girlies out there, when it comes to our love life, like I think it's so easy to want to ascribe how we go about with like business is we want like all of the advice and then we want all of the
yeah,
feedback and then we want to feel like we're ready, and the truth is you just won't be 100% ready, and you won't have that certainty, and that's something that I think is a huge challenge for a lot of high achieving, and I'm speaking from experience, like I'm kind of a perfectionist in many ways and I've come to realize this, but if you lead into dating with that sense of like certainty and needing things to like
like
have a
control.
specific outcome, yeah, it's like control, then you're actually losing the magic of connection and of flirting. And the real juice of dating is in the uncertainty and just getting a little bit more comfortable and confident with that. Um, is really key. So I definitely had that experience. And then I met my second relationship when I first moved to Vancouver. And I was not even looking for a relationship at the time. I had just moved here, but he was my barista at a local coffee shop around the corner from me.
Yeah,
Yeah, and so we just developed this really nice connection, but it didn't feel romantic off the bat. It just felt nice. But eventually we like hung out and then he asked me to hang out again. And then it was very much like a slow burn of us getting to know each other and becoming boyfriend, girlfriend. But what's interesting about this relationship is it happened in, yeah, this kind of meet cute way. Like he was my barista and we had this slow burn, but he ended up being my most unhealthy, toxic relationship. And that relationship brought me a lot of pain. And so that actually brings me to this important lesson for the people listening at this moment. I really want you to hear this. The way you meet somebody is such a small part of the story, and to not romanticize, like, whether it's on the apps or in person, because again, it's not guaranteed. He treated me worse than my first boyfriend who I met on the app. So it's just like there's no guarantee, but you have to put some skin in the game to learn that
yeah,
and to like test out the waters. And now, even though that relationship and that breakup brought me so much pain, it's like it's one of the best things that's happened to me because I really needed that to have kind of this final leg of that journey of this is not how I want to continue attracting men.
yeah,
Because up until that point, I'd attracted a lot of similar kind of avoidant tendencies in men. So then I went on a journey of, becoming a certified coach, and I enrolled in like a group dating relationship coaching program, and I learned a lot. And
yeah,
I decided from then on two things. Number one, I don't want to be jaded from this, and that's because I don't want to live my life from a jaded energy. And that's a area of self-love too that we don't give enough credit for is if you're holding this stick up your butt about like how you feel about whatever the dating scene, it's like you're actually not serving yourself because that energy is going to stick onto your aura and it's going to impact the way that you feel as you just like engage with the world. And number two is I took radical accountability and responsibility for the energy I was putting out and for the way I was behaving and acting and for the way I was communicating. And when I approached dating from that place, I had such a different experience. Like dating was so fun for me. From the years of like 2022 to 2024 is when I was like truly in this empowered single Lydia state. But so I was clear but unattached. I was flirty, but
Yeah.
like not giving the goods away too soon, you know? I was just really trusting of myself, and that eventually led to me meeting my now partner in 2024 at a networking event. So that's kind of a long-winded but beautiful journey of my dating life.
Yeah, I think that's so cool how like you went to an event and you guys just like connected there.
Yeah. It's uh it's actually really special because that year that I met him, I started that year really internally having this belief that I put out of I trust I'm actually going to meet my person this year. I expect it. So
Wow.
you know how people are like, "Oh, it'll happen when you least expect it." I disagree. I dare
Yeah.
you to expect it.
Yeah. Put the intention out there.
Yeah, just put the intention out there, expect it. And that actually kept me so much more relaxed than the it'll happen when you least expect it because singles just want to roll their eyes at that. And actually that makes you more of a wife. It's like, no, it's if something didn't work out in that year that turned out to be that person, it's like, well, I still expect it. It's just not from this person. It's like I didn't let that discourage my belief. And yeah, I met him that year. It was October. So um and yeah, it was just a really beautiful serendipitous moment.
That's amazing. What
Yeah.
has like your journey been like traveling solo?
I've traveled to 33 countries solo and
Wow.
every continent except for Antarctica and Oceania. And it really started, I think, as early as my teenage years when I lived at home. My parents took me and my sisters on a 2-month road trip in the summer of 2007. And we just lived out of our van and camped pretty much. And we road tripped like through the States and through
That's so
Canada
cool.
for 2 months. And I think that at that point really brought in this zest for the world and adventures and like being on the road. And so that instilled that passion at that time. And then as soon as I got to university, I had this desire to study abroad, and I just knew for sure that that was going to be something I did. And so I
Yeah.
studied abroad in Ireland in university for a semester in my third year, and then I backpacked a lot of Europe at the time because I was so close. And that's really when I dipped my toes more in solo travel. I went to Ireland solo, but it's like it is a different experience when you just go on a trip somewhere alone than like for
Yeah.
a semester. But I just promised to myself I would do at least one solo trip. And I talked about this actually at my live podcast interview last night because I talked about this feeling of it still can feel nerve-wracking to introduce yourself to new people.
Yeah.
So I remember I'll never forget my very first night in a hostel solo, and I had to work up the courage to say hi to one person. And I was kind of shocked at myself because I thought, well, I'm comfortable talking to people. Like, this is something that feels natural to me. And I was
Yeah.
scared shitless and had to give myself a pep talk in the mirror.
Wow.
And then I just went downstairs and approached a girl sitting alone at the restaurant and just said, "Hi, how are you?" And that's so funny to just say, "Hi, how are you?" But it really can be that simple.
Yeah.
And if that's all you got, then you just lead with that. And we ended up getting along great. Um, and then we had a great dinner together. And that built my confidence to say the same and introduce myself to new people the next day. And I think that brings me to an important point, Cindy, is that a lot of self-love is also like doing things over and over again that show yourself you can do it.
Yeah.
And so it's like the more evidence I started banking of, oh, I can introduce myself to new people and I'm not going to die and I'm not going to like embarrass myself. And sometimes you do and you just have to move along and like not let that sit so hard. Um, and that might take a moment or a journey of like again talking to those parts of yourself and giving them compassion. But that really instilled a love of solo travel because I was so intoxicated by that feeling of, oh, I can wake up in a completely new city on my own. The day is mine to do what I want, but I can like meet these other solo travelers from all over the world and create these memories as if I've known them forever. And I became addicted to that. So, yeah, all after that, I traveled more of Europe and then I traveled Asia for a year in 2019. Um, on a one-way ticket, and that was always a travel dream of mine was to go in a way where I wasn't being held back by a certain strict timeline. And I was lucky because I was working a remote job at that time too, so I just worked completely remote from Asia and had the most magical year, one of the best years of my life for sure. I went to Portugal for a month and then Morocco for about 6 weeks, and then COVID happened when I was in Morocco. So then that put kind of everything on pause
Yeah.
there. But since COVID and since like travel opened up again, I've been able to, for the most part, like visit a new country at least once a year. So since COVID, I've gone to Colombia, Mexico, Argentina, Turkey, and this summer is actually kind of special because I'm returning to my partner is half Sri Lankan, and his mom still lives there. His mom's side of the family live there, and we're going together in August.
Wow.
And
That's gonna be such a fun experience.
yeah, so I've never actually traveled like internationally with a partner, so that's gonna be after all these like solo travels, it's gonna be very new, but I'm excited.
Oh,
Totally. Yeah, it's gonna be good. Have
very
you
fun.
solo traveled?
I did like New York and then I did Orlando and then I'm going to Ottawa in November. But it's all like I'm going to like a conference and kind of that's been my easy way of like getting myself out there. But I feel like I just want to like book a trip and like just do a solo trip too.
Yeah, where would you go?
I'm not sure.
You're not sure? Did you
No.
ever want to go somewhere as a child?
Um, Nothing really. Like I've always like loved Europe. Like I've been to Italy, Croatia, but it's always been like with my husband or with like family. But I
Okay.
haven't like done like a Europe trip or anything like solo. It's mostly like to the States at the most.
Okay. Yeah, Europe's so like solo travel friendly because there's so many people who go there solo. Like you
Yeah.
could start with like Portugal or Spain. There's gonna be a lot of like experiences and things to do there and tons of solo travelers. Generally, like when you start solo traveling, like at least 75% of the people you meet are solo travelers. So,
That's so true.
yeah.
Now I wanted to talk a little bit about like the work that you do, support your clients. What does like coaching look like working with you?
Yeah, so my main way of working with clients is really around supporting them and helping them attract a healthy, delicious relationship and without abandoning themselves because a lot of my clients typically feel very anxious about, trusting themselves. They feel anxious about, um, things as simple as a guy not texting them back or being ghosted or rejected. And so they don't want to overextend or get into like that people pleasing mode when they're dating. They want to feel like that super, attractive, flirty, feminine woman that just naturally has men gravitating towards her and she doesn't have to like overthink it. That's how my clients want to feel. And for many of them too, when they come to me, they haven't had much experience actually dating or it's been a long time. And so they're intimidated by the process. Like maybe they've gone through a breakup years ago and so they want to re-enter dating or they've been pretty much single for the majority of their life. And
Yeah.
so they just again feeling it's this intimidation aspect and it's like an area of their brain and their soul and their body that they haven't really opened up to. So how I kind of work with my clients is my program is called the Romance Reset. And my method, I call it the delicious dating method. My three main pillars in delicious dating are recalibration, rewire, and return. So in the first several weeks of working together, we really look at like recalibrating your your energy and your system to release anything that's like no longer serving you. So like maybe for some of my clients they have this feeling of, oh, I'm not desirable enough. And that was proved by a past situationship or a past relationship. Or in some cases, they're holding on still to remnants of a past person that they wish would like reach back out to them or they wish would, come into their life again. So we really work on recalibrating their system so it feels as like clean as possible. So there's no like residual attachments or belief or thought patterns. Then we get into rewire. So rewire is like all about rewiring their beliefs and their the way their body even responds to certain things in dating to the point where they go out in public, for example, and if a man smiles at them and gives them eye contact, that they
Yeah.
rewire their belief of like all men are creeps, for example. And so
Yeah.
it's not like their body act goes into this like freeze state of like, I want to freeze here or I want to run away and flee because I'm scared, right? And sometimes
Right.
that comes also from, again, like past traumas. So sometimes those past memories comes into just naturally into play in the recalibration. But then rewire is like really working with the mind and the body to help them not feel that response in those moments because I want them to be able to then return
Yeah.
to dating and to the world as the woman that they want to show up as, like as the woman who does not flee when a man flirts with them, who does not, overthink um every interaction with a man, but is truly like in her body and relaxed and feels juicy and returns to the woman who's actually having fun with dating and believes that her partnership is out there really soon. So that's kind of the journey. I've noticed, with one of my clients, she met her now partner a few months after our work together. So that's like
Oh, that's so
pretty
cool.
incredible. Um, and she credits the work we did together. She had a lot of beliefs actually around that there were no good men out there. And so
Yeah.
that's what I really worked on her with. And she ended up, yeah, meeting her now partner like 3 to 4 months later. So that's beautiful. And then for some other women, I've helped them just attract more high quality men out on the dating apps. I've helped them feel more confident flirting in public, giving eye contact to men, starting conversations, going to dating events. And that's a big deal for me because again, it just goes beyond the the eventual outcome, which is ideally for them to meet somebody, but it's them just feeling confident and good in their skin, when they're out in the
Yeah.
world and they're not coming into those like, oh, like let me hide myself. They're like being shiny and bright, and I think that's so beautiful.
That's amazing that you do that because I feel like it's so needed and a lot of women like they don't want to talk to their friends about it. They're overthinking it. Like there's kind of like shame around it too. Like why am I being this way or like why am I not attracting like the right type of person?
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of shame that like develops and like a lot of shame if they might try something and then it doesn't work. But that's why I have to remind them like and that's why we do the recalibrate and rewire so that it's like if something doesn't end up panning out in a desirable way, you don't take that to mean something about your worth.
So true. Would it work best for like women to reach out to you before they start dating or like throughout their journey of dating?
I think like either or. I think it's like if they haven't started dating yet and they're like, yes, I know I want to meet my person and really approach dating in a new and different way, then they can reach out to me. But if they're also in their dating life and they're not feeling good, they're not feeling flirty, they're not feeling secure.
Okay, amazing. And then you also have like a podcast.
Yeah, so my podcast is called Flirting with Life, And it's really a mission and mantra born out of this feeling like if life were turned on to you, how would you be turned on to it? How would you engage with life, with your friends, your business, your dating life, your day to day, all of these things? And so I cover topics around relationships, dating, some business, spirituality. And I think what I'm loving with flirting with life is just like getting a little bit spicier. Like it kind of goes beyond just like generic mindset and confidence. And I really want to have like hot takes shared on the show. I really love when people spice it up and um it's been such a beautiful journey. It's almost a year anniversary since I launched it, and I've had some incredible guests on the show. I've had Kelly Chase from season one of Love is Blind. I've had
That's so
Michaela
cool.
J, who's like a beautiful manifestation and mindset coach.
And then are you doing more like in person, like podcasts?
Yeah, that's the goal. My goal is to do at least one live interview pop up a quarter. So I just hosted one last night, which was like such a success. And I think the next one probably won't be until November. Um, so yeah, right now they're in Vancouver, but if anybody's listening who isn't in Vancouver and is like, this would be really cool in X city, then I'm also open to discussing that because I have a dream of doing a podcast tour.
That's amazing and so cool. I'll
Yeah.
definitely have to check out your next in-person one.
Yeah, you definitely have to come.
What's like the best way for our audience to connect with you or just learn more about like your services and the podcast?
Yeah, the best way to connect with me is on Instagram at Lydia the Dating Coach in my DMs. You can also send me an email to healwithlydia@gmail.com. And yeah, I mentioned the name of the podcast, Flirting with Life. That's on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So give it a listen. Whatever episodes call to you, start there and then work your way around. And I'm excited to hear from you.
Thank you so much, Lydia. I'll share all your details in the show notes.
Thanks, Cindy.
If you're a founder who wants real strategy, not noise, and you want someone in your corner helping you build a business that feels aligned, is profitable, and actually supports your life, you can apply for CFO on Call. This is my one-on-one financial partnership for established founders, typically making between $500K to $2 million, who want clarity, who want structure and confidence with their numbers. The link is in the show notes so you can schedule a profit strategy call, or you can DM me CFO on Instagram at itscindykamar and I'll send over all the details.